owes my family an apology. More so because a lot of times he'll have this perspective of it was a joke or I was trying to be funny and it did not land.
Kimmi Grant's explosive moment on Love and Marriage Huntsville has undoubtedly become a pivotal turning point for the show, and for many fans, it was a long-awaited reality check for Marsau Scott. For seasons, Marsau has been the charming, quick-witted member of the cast, often managing to smooth things over with his words, deflecting any real accountability with a mix of humor and manipulation. But on that fateful day, it was Kimmi who decided enough was enough, and what followed was a confrontation that shocked fans and left Marsau visibly shaken. Kimmi, known for her calm demeanor and logical approach to drama, had been quietly observing the subtle manipulations of Marsau for quite some time. In many group scenes, Marsau would dominate the conversation, dismissing others' input with sarcasm or deflection, often making himself the smartest person in the room. Kimmi, who had always stayed out of the drama, saw this pattern developing and decided it was time to address it head-on. What made her words even more powerful was her credibility. Kimmi had been through real struggles, including her battle with cancer, and yet she showed up on the show week after week trying to maintain a level-headed presence. This made her call out of Marsau hit differently, because it wasn't just another cast member complaining, it was someone who had witnessed his behavior firsthand and had enough. The tension between Kimmi and Marsau had been brewing for a while, and it all came to a head when Marsau downplayed Kimmi's battle with cancer. That moment, where Kimmi finally snapped, was the moment viewers had been waiting for. It wasn't just a random outburst, it was a calculated, measured response to years of being brushed off and minimized. Kimmi laid it all out, calling out Marsau for his emotionally manipulative tactics and his constant deflection from any serious issues. It was clear that Marsau was caught off guard. He had built an entire narrative around his charm and quick wit. But when Kimmi pulled back the curtain, it became clear that his charm was just a tool to avoid accountability. Kimmi's words were a revelation for many fans who had been quietly observing Marsau's behavior for seasons, waiting for someone to stand up to him. For so long, viewers had seen Marsau dismiss the feelings and concerns of those around him, especially his wife, Letitia. Marsau's tendency to use humor and sarcasm to deflect serious issues had made it difficult for anyone to get through to him. But when Kimmi called him out, it wasn't just about her own grievances. It was about validating the frustrations of those who had been silenced by his manipulative tactics. She pointed out that Marsau often used his intellect to shut others down, making them feel inferior. And in doing so, he controlled the narrative. This was a direct hit at the heart of Marsau's behavior and challenged the carefully crafted image.
We're talking about, oh my God, it's a bad problem running rampant. And here's the reason why it's running rampant, right? It's because we don't know what it really is.
Image he had built over the years. What made Kimmi's moment even more powerful was the context in which it took place. This wasn't just a private conversation between her and Marsau. It was a public discussion in front of the entire group, with cameras rolling and the pressure of the moment amplifying the stakes. Marsau tried to deflect, cracking nervous jokes and attempting to talk over Kimmi, but she wasn't having it. She wasn't backing down, and her delivery was calm, yet firm. Kimmi wasn't just speaking from her own experience, she was speaking for everyone who had been subjected to Marsau's emotional manipulation and deflection tactics. The impact of Kimmi's words extended far beyond that moment. It was a game changer for the dynamics within the group, and it sent shockwaves through the Love and Marriage Huntsville fanbase. For years, Marsau had been the one pulling the strings, using his charisma and sharp wit to dominate the conversation and steer things in his favor. But now, Kimmi had taken the reins, and her no-nonsense approach made it clear that Marsau's usual tactics wouldn't work anymore. What followed was a flurry of reactions from fans and cast members alike. Social media went into overdrive as fans dissected every word, every gesture, and every shift in body language from that scene. It wasn't just about what Kimmi said, it was about the way she said it. Her words carried weight because they were grounded in reality, not drama. She wasn't just throwing accusations. She was calling out a pattern of behavior that had been evident for seasons. Fans began to draw comparisons between Kimmi's confrontation with Marsau and the way Letitia had been treated by him over the years. Kimmi's words validated what Letitia had been quietly feeling, that her concerns were constantly brushed off and dismissed. Letitia's frustration, which had often been labeled as emotional or insecure, suddenly seemed justified. As the clip of Kimmi's confrontation went viral, Marsau found himself in damage control mode. Instead of addressing the issue head-on and taking responsibility for his actions, he resorted to deflecting and justifying his behavior. He posted a series of Instagram stories claiming that people would believe what they wanted to believe and that editing had made him out to be the villain. He tried to downplay the situation, but fans weren't buying it. His usual tactics of deflection and manipulation were now exposed for what they were, an attempt to avoid accountability. The more he tried to shift blame, the more fans saw through his act. They recognized his behavior for what it truly was: textbook narcissism. The real turning point came when Marsau took to a podcast to further explain himself. Instead of offering a genuine apology or owning up to his actions, he once again tried to redirect the conversation, claiming that things had been taken out of context. He never directly addressed Kimmi's accusations, and his failure to acknowledge the truth only made things worse. It became clear that Marsau was unwilling to face the reality of his actions, and this only reinforced what fans had suspected all along, that he was more interested in controlling the narrative than taking responsibility for his behavior. Meanwhile, Letitia's silence spoke volumes. Throughout all of this, she remained quiet. She didn't rush to defend her husband or post a message of support. Her silence was intentional, and it felt like a statement in itself. For years, Letitia had been the one to deal with Marsau's dismissive attitude and emotional manipulation. But now, with Kimmi speaking out, Letitia no longer seemed like the overreacting wife. She seemed like someone who had been silently enduring the same behavior that Kimmi had just called out. The contrast between Kimmi's public stand and Letitia's quiet reaction highlighted the growing divide in the Scott family, and it became clear that things were shifting both on and off the show. Kimmi's moment was more than just a confrontation. It was a power shift. For years, she had been the voice of reason, the one who stayed out of the drama and tried to keep things grounded. But in that moment, she reclaimed her power. She went from being the silent observer to the one who stood up and spoke the truth, regardless of the consequences. Her growth as a character on the show had been subtle, but it was now undeniable. She had proven that silence didn't always mean strength. Sometimes, speaking up was the true form of power. Kimmi's call-out of Marsau marked a shift in how the women on Love and Marriage Huntsville were perceived. No longer were they just passive participants in the drama. They were taking control of the narrative, calling out the men who had long dominated the conversation. And as Kimmi rises, it seems that Letitia is waking up too. After years of feeling unheard and overshadowed by her husband, Letitia is beginning to assert herself in ways that suggest a newfound strength. Rumors about her exploring legal options and business ventures without Marsau are gaining traction, and this only adds to the growing tension within the Scott family. What started as a small crack in their image of unity and success is now a full-blown fissure, and it's clear that the dynamics on Love and Marriage Huntsville are changing. The shift in power is undeniable. Marsau, once the master manipulator, is now struggling to maintain control. His charm and quick wit no longer carry the same weight they once did. Kimmi's words have opened the floodgates, and now the rest of the world is seeing what had been hidden for so long. The emotional manipulation, the deflection, and the control tactics that Marsau had used for years are no longer working. Fans are seeing him for what he truly is. And it's clear that his days of being the puppet master are numbered. What happens next for Marsau, Kimmi, and the rest of the cast remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: Kimmi's bold stand has changed the game. It wasn't just a moment of confrontation, it was a declaration of independence. The women on Love and Marriage Huntsville are no longer content to stay in the background. They are stepping into the spotlight, and they are not afraid to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Kimmi's explosion of truth wasn't just about her personal frustration with Marsau. It was a wake-up call for everyone involved. It was a moment that exposed the cracks in the Scott family's polished image and forced Marsau to face the consequences of his actions. And as the dynamics continue to shift, it's clear that Kimmi's bold move will be remembered as a turning point in the show's history. The question now is, how will Marsau respond, and what will this mean for the future of Love and Marriage Huntsville? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure: things will never be the same again.